G'day folks, welcome to another episode of Learn to Paint TV. Rod Moore here with you again, hope you're well. This week we're going to do a little country scene which is taken early in the morning of a view across the valley towards Mount Pomona. And this is one of the paintings that I did on my 30-day plein air painting challenge. And I took a couple of photos and I thought it might make a good little subject for us to do today. So I'm working on a slightly bigger canvas today. We've got a 16 by 20 inch canvas here. And as always with the Moore method of painting, we're going to start off step one with our drawing. I'm going to use ultramarine blue and some permanent crimson. And I'm going to use a medium sized flat brush for our drawing because it's quite a large canvas, so no point mucking around with a small brush. Now in this step we will use a bit of water just to thin this paint down, and that's probably the only time that we'll use much water in this painting. So I'll just put my photo. What's important about this painting, I think, is getting the interplay of the darks, shadows, against that morning light. So that's what we'll really aim for, is really nice thick darks and some really warm morning glowing highlights. So I'm just mixing the blue and the red there, adding a bit of water to it just to thin it back. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is get the position of the Pomona Mountain in, because that's really the key sort of subject in this painting, and I want to make sure that we have that in the right place. It's around about that 2/3 mark, okay, and then there's a mountain range in front of it that runs that way, and all of this area in here is in shadow to about there. Okay, so there's going to be a series of trees and things in there in shadow. And that runs to about there. Then we've got a foreground plane there, which is catching all the light. And then now I'm not going to do this exactly like the photo, I'm just going to use the photo as a basic reference to give us something to work on. In this valley here, there are several layers of, I'll pop that one up a little bit higher, several layers of little mountain ranges and so on in there. This one here is getting all the light, and then we've got lots of trees and things there. So this is the foreground line there. And there are some other verticals which we'll put in here. So we're going to have lots of warm grasses and things in there, some fence posts and so on in there. And so you can see I'm mapping this out quite simply, and I might just move Mount Pomona over. Don't fuss too much at this early stage. We're getting it just right. Just get the shapes, the right shapes in at the right location, I think is the real key here. So that gives me a bit of a framework that we can work from. Well, we know we've got our dark and light pattern, our big dark here and over here, and then the rest of it's going to be, we're going to hit the highlights and the rest of it there. So that ends step one. We'll start step two, which is our block-in phase. Okay, so we're going to use big brushes and lots of paint is the key here. Let's just block that in, and then we'll shape this dark up as we go. But for the moment, we just want to get the values down on the canvas here. Okay, see, I've got that little clump of foliage out there. It's important to not have it round, right? So break up that line with a clump of foliage. And don't muck around with this, like you can see I'm applying the paint fairly quickly. As long as I'm getting the right tone and colour in the right place, that's all I'm really after at this stage. Okay, put a little bit more out there. Okay, got this one in here. I'll push that slightly redder. Okay, so just make that a bit of a clump of dark grass there. So the reason why I made it redder is just to warm it up a little bit. Warm colours come forward and cooler colours recede into the distance there. Okay, it's got that one. So that's going to be our warmest dark, and we've got this one here. This one's going to just be just that little step back from there a little bit, so I'll go touch bluer with it, and we'll shape that clump of foliage up as we go. Probably just add a tiny little touch of white in there just to break that back a bit. And I'll add in a couple in right about there. A couple of dark indications there. Don't know what they're going to be. They might be covered up, they might not. But the point is, we're now going to add a bit of white, and we're going to have less red in that mix. And we should be able to notice, I need a little bit more white and a little bit more blue. A shift here as we move backwards. So I put a test mark up there, and I noticed it was too close in value, because this little ridge through here, this is a fair way off in the distance. So you can see there now, there's definitely a jump in between those two. Okay, and that's what we're looking for. So if you want to create a sense of depth and realism in your painting, then just do what I did there, make up a mix and test it against the next closest value there. Okay, and then that will help you then to get your value structure right. So just block that in, don't fuss too much. Now you notice I've just about run out of paint already for this mix, and I've still got all that to go. So you've got to mix up plenty of paint when you're working on a big canvas. Again, if you choose to work on a small one, that's perfectly fine, but just know that you've got to mix just the appropriate amount of paint to go with the size of the canvas that you're working on. Now, that's too light. Get a little bit more blue and red into that. Okay, you can see that's a bit lighter. Mix that up. You can see my brush is clogging up with paint there. Now, while I'm doing the blocking, I don't mind that so much. If I was doing my detail work, I'd be cleaning that brush. Okay. Now, see that's a definite step back. I could just go a little bit more white and a little bit more blue into that mix there, I feel. Whatever's on the brush. Okay, and it's looking good. Keep the shape of your, the top shape of this little ridge line here. Keep that interesting. Don't keep it just flat and boring. So now you can start to see that there's depth and everything coming into this painting just nicely. Getting exciting. Now the mountainside itself, it's behind that layer, so I will add a bit more white and a bit more blue to that. Let's just, so it probably needs more white than that. Let's see what white we've got. Okay. There we go, that's the one. So anybody that knows this region of the Sunshine Coast, up north of Noosa, will be familiar with, well, probably Karori Mountain and Pomona Mountain. They both have a similar look. Start off with getting that sunlight in there. So we get the yellow and the white. We'll mix those two together. Okay, now remember acrylics dry darker, so I'll go just a touch lighter with that. And I've got a big amount of paint there, which is good, right? So I'm just going to work some sunlight up into this part of the painting here, and just blur that edge. Okay, it's a really hazy, atmospheric sort of morning here. Bright light, so you're not going to see off in the distance. You're not going to see defined edges and lines. Okay, so just blur it all up. Okay, now I'll use the same brush, take some paper towel, I'll pull that paint out. Okay, so I'm not cleaning it completely, but I'm pulling the paint out. Then I'm going to take another chunk of that white. I'm going to pop it there. I get some blue, and I'm using less of the blue than I was using of the yellow. Okay, so it's probably a slightly lighter tone there, and then let's just work that in up into this tree. So hopefully this dark here is starting to dry up a little, because I don't want to pull that dark into my painting, into my sky at this stage. Just grab a couple of little sky holes in there. Okay, now I'm just going to go up to the edge of the sunlight colour at this stage. A little bit more white. What I'll do is I'll work it up to the edge of it before I start to try and connect the two. If I try and connect the two now, then my brush will get too much of the yellow in there, and the combination of the yellow and the blue in my brush will send it to a murky green. Again, I can shape up that edges of that foliage when we put our highlights and so on. Okay, get a bit of that blue up in there. Spots. Now you're going to work fast because obviously the acrylics, it's drying the whole time. Now I'm going to just integrate some of those two tones together. Yeah, the acrylics are drying the whole time, so I need to work fast with this, and I can't afford to stop for a cup of tea here at this stage. And now I'm going to just blend up those edges together and introduce a little bit of that blue. Yeah, it's almost dry now, in fact, and just sort of work those colours together a bit. Now, this foreground hill, this is the hill that I'm standing on that overlooks the valley. This is catching a lot of sunlight, and it's going to be our warmest and stronger value, right? Not necessarily darkest, but we want this to be a strong value. So I won't use any white in here, and to get our sort of base colour, I'm going to warm it up with yellow and red, basically make an orange out of it. I think that'll work well as a base colour painting there, as a base colour for our painting, especially when we hit some nice golden grasses and some greens and things in there. Okay, and again, using lots of paint. And this is one of the secrets that I noticed about all the really good painters, is they weren't skimpy on their paint. Now I know that's not easy if you're on a tight budget, which many of us are, and myself included, right? But if you can, especially with acrylics, it seems to me that with acrylics, mixing up a lot of paint, as long as you don't let it dry, although you could use a little squirt bottle and keep it moist, but it just takes on a nicer quality, almost like an oil painting. You know, I've got nice big textures in there, which I think add a lot of interest for the viewer. Well, we've got there. I think that's pretty much our blocking that we need to do. We've got nice big dark, we've got this effect of light coming through here, got this really warm foreground where we put up our warm grasses and lights in here, and then we've got a progression of dark to our next dark, then into the valley, and then stepping back to Pomona Mountain, we've got layers of dark, or value shifts there, and you can already feel a sense of depth starting to happen in this painting, and I think this one's going to turn out a ripper by the time we finish it. I think what we'll do is put a tree a vertical running up that way. It'll be just mostly trunk with a little bit of foliage just in here, and that'll just counterbalance against, so it'll be a dark, nice big dark silhouetted trunk, and that dark will then counterbalance against that light, and it'll also help us frame, and we'll get this intimate sort of view into Pomona Mountain. So I'm pretty happy with the way this is going. There's a lot of paint there, so I'm going to leave this for an hour or so, and then we'll pop back and we'll do step 3 after that time has passed, and I think this will come together as a nice little painting. So I'll see you after the break. Okay, welcome back now to step 3. I've left this for a couple of hours. It's pretty dry now, and it's looking good. It's settled down quite nicely, and now we need to start to, obviously, in step 3, do our details, our highlights, and all the finishing touches that go with it. This is the part where we really slow down and take our time in bringing this painting together. So what I'll typically do here is I'll work from this back distance forward, and then we'll detail up the forward as we go. So it's important that we maintain that value structure along the way. So the way we do that, I'll introduce some highlights. There's not going to be much detail on this back mountain, but I'll introduce some highlights in through here, just to indicate the sunlight hitting on the side of the mountain. So what we need to do is start off by finding pretty much that color there. So we know it's blue and red, and we know that there's going to be a reasonable amount of white in there. So I just want to refine that tone. Okay, now it's a little bit too red. If I take that and touch that on there, it's a little bit darker and it's a little bit redder. Okay, so what we do is we add more blue and we'll add more white to that mix. Okay, now that's probably a little bit too blue, so add more white. It's going to add this down to the side here now. Work that back in. Okay. Now you have to remember that acrylics are going to dry a little bit darker. Therefore, we just need to go a shade lighter. And that's pretty well spot on. You can't really see that little test that I did there, which means that we've pretty much got the same color mix there. So I'll just pull out some of that paint, mix that in. Now what we want to do is we want to warm that tone up. We need to lighten it off. Okay. So I'll take a chunk of white, we'll pop that in there, and then I want to warm it up with some of this yellow, because that's our sun color that we've got coming through here. So this should be a lighter, warmer tone. Okay. Now it may not necessarily look right up on the palette. So what we always need to do now, is test. But first of all, we need to make sure that our brush, when we get to this step 3, make sure our brush isn't clogged up with paint. So I'm just going to pull some of that paint out. Okay. And I'm just going to take the edge and just tip the edge back and forward. So you see that there? Just got paint on the edge there. And I'm going to just test this now, and I think that's pretty much the right tone. Okay, so the sunlight's going to be clipping on the tops of the trees and so on in here. So we'll just work some of that in to indicate that. Now at this distance, not going to be a lot of detail in there at all. Okay. Just little bits there where the sunlight will be catching, and that's pretty much all we need there. Now, along this this ridge here, I've got pretty much the same tone, haven't I, as what I've got here. So I'm not going to make too many different, I'm not going to change that too much. I'll just add a little bit more yellow ochre in there, just so we've got a subtle little shift there. And let me just run some of that in along the top here and indicate a few spots where we might be catching some sunlight. And again, this is going to be rows of trees where the tree tops are just catching. Okay, and then it's going to always be on this side if the light's coming from over here. Okay. Just don't use too much paint here, just a little bit of paint is all it needs. Don't get it too bright down in the lower parts of this valley. Keep it brighter up the top parts, and you can put some little indications of tree tops catching in. Now, this one here we're going to have a little bit more detail on. Good. Because it's a bit closer to us, there's going to be just that little bit more detail. So I'm going to take more of the yellow ochre, I'll take a little bit more of the white. Okay. Going to add a little bit of blue into that. And the hillside here is more exposed. It's got more of a grassy field kind of feel to it, like that. And we'll just run that down there, and we'll indicate some light catching on the top there. Let us take our blue and our red, and I've got my wonky scribbler brush. I'll add a little touch of water into this now, and we're going to just run in the tree trunks in here. So. You can see that by putting these tree trunks over that grassy area in the back, that now pushing that back. I'll go to a smaller brush. This is one from Robert Hagen's brush kit. So if you're looking for a good little brush kit, and check out what he's got available there. And I've just been testing them out, and I'll just pop in some trunks and branches and the like. Key here is obviously not to overdo it, which is always very tempting. Over these sky holes is always a good idea. Run that along here. Notice I'm just flicking up some little bits for grasses. And I'm doing it quite randomly. I'm not thinking too much about it because I like that sort of loose feel to it. Okay. And don't be afraid to let some of that red earthy tone as well come through. A variety of brush strokes is important. bigger brush strokes as we're closer to us. And I'm trying to capture that sort of random, out of control sort of a way that grasses and things grow in nature. I'm just going to pop it sort of straight up through there. It's going to be mostly just a dark silhouette. So let's see how we go. I'm using a smaller brush now. And I'm pick my point, I'm going to make it run to about there. Okay, and I don't want it to be perfectly straight, but reasonably straight. So around about there. And I can just come in and just carefully fill in . Like so. Okay. And we've got branch running that way like so. It's probably one that runs up that way. Take a clean brush and we'll just use the same dark. And just run that in like there, maybe a little bit there. Maybe up there. So that just creates a nice vertical, because there's a lot of horizontals in this painting. And fills out some of that sky area as well. We'll just pick up some of this dark green here. Hints of it here and there, and I think that's probably about where we're going to leave it, because I can tell that I'm now starting to fiddle, but overall I think we're pretty happy the way it's come up as a good little demo painting. Pomona Mountain in the distance, you can see it's sitting right back there in the distance, and we've got all those progressive layers of paint coming forward, and then this nice warm foreground area creating a little frame with the trees. And we're still maintaining this is our darkest mass, this is our warmest area here. So on the principles of aerial perspective, we've been able to create quite a bit of depth using those ideas. So it's a larger painting that I've done today. You don't have to do it that big, you can do it on a smaller canvas, but it's definitely a good one, because I think if you can get this looking right in terms of the depth and everything, and there's glowing sunshine pushing through the valley, if you can get it looking right, then you'll pretty much come to understand everything you need to know about creating a feeling of depth in a painting, which with a landscape painting, that's probably one of the more important aspects of landscape painting. So I highly recommend you have a go at this one. I hope you've enjoyed our demonstration here today, and let me know how you go with yours. Make sure you also watch all the past episodes of Learn to Paint TV. I'll put the web addresses underneath here, so go and visit the Learn to Paint TV website. And if you'd like a free course which goes into more detail about the method that we use, the Moore method of painting, and give you a more detailed painting demonstration, then drop by our Learn to Paint Academy and request a free course there. Again, the web address is on here. And until next week, happy painting.